Hey there, it's Bruce from Nature Calls, and Ethan from EDC Adventures is going on the AZT, or the Arizona Trail, and he wanted to do it with a minimalist tarp, so he got a hold of me and we put together a tarp. Went off of what he wanted as a design. He wanted a 7 foot by 7 foot with 8 tie outs, so basically a tie out in each corner and a tie out in between each one of those. So I got to send it out to him right away because he's leaving in about a week. And but I need to get some pictures for the gram, you know, so let's do some quick setups and then I'll show you how I built it after that. All right, so here's the tarp, and I use the 1.1 ounce Sil Poly PU 4000 fabric, and can't remember what lines are. I'll put all that down in the description. All in though, it's around 9 ounces for a 7 by 7 foot tarp. Let's do some quick setups. Where's my ridge? There's my ridge line. I'll put Ethan's channel link down below, so if you want to follow him on his Arizona Trail. Very cool. And then I'll go over basically some of the reasoning that I did certain things and why I did these things. So here you got your basic A-frame. When I go minimalist tarping, 90% of the time, if I don't have trees or rock to work with, this is what I do. I know I've done tons and tons of different tarp setups, but really when it's raining, I need to get something up that's going to protect me. That is, this is really can't be beat. Now I've made each of these loops capable of putting a trekking pole through on every single one of the tie out points, and then using these line locks, which I found when I'm doing this minimalist tarping, is easier to stake to the ground and then have this adjuster right up here. You'll get things done a lot faster and adjusted quicker. This is all, of course, tacked to the ground. I could tack that one down too for storm. This has plenty of room for you, a dog, and your gear. Here's another one I really like. It's just to lift up one side. You can take a view, especially if you're like on a river or by a lake, but you still have plenty of coverage. So just lift it up a little bit by sticking those stakes out. Another quick one, definitely gives you lots of room, ability to look out. You've got protection on 2 sides. Those tarp clips that I've been getting from Dutchware Gear, if you had one of those, you could pull up the back, or pull out the back and give yourself more room. So you can get these little tarp clips. You can get like the cheap ones at a hardware store, or get the really cool ones from Dutchware Gear. That gives you plenty of room. So if you had 2 people, this would be pretty sweet. Now in reality, the minimalist tarping, this is what I would do. I wouldn't be in an open field by any means at all. I'd try and find protection, try and find a tree, a rock, something. Because when you're under a small tarp, even a big tarp, you just won't set up out in the middle of the field. Never see it done. And I definitely don't look for that. I mean, if you had to, you had to. But you can always find some place to find a little bit of protection. And this is a real easy one. Gives you plenty of room to do all kinds of things. Good protection. So up here, I just basically did kind of like a marlin spike hitch, real quick, through the loop. Boom, boom, boom. Done quick. All right, this is the fabric. It's the 1.1 ounce Sil Poly PU 4000. It's one of my favorite fabrics for making tarps out of. It's lightweight enough that it's still lightweight. I could have gone a lot lighter, but I feel this is really, it's got the ripstop, it's got the nice silicone sealing. Everything about it is, a good high performance lightweight tarp. But you get, I got 6 yards of it, so now I've got to cut it down, and it's going to be a 7 by 7 tarp, so we're going to cut down to 85 inches, which is 7 feet plus an inch for the hem. 2 sections of that. So don't have a lot of room in my house, I'll just come out to the driveway. But this is the jig that I made a while back, and so it'll help me make a nice, I'm gonna mark it, and it's like a big long ruler. So, all right, time to mark it up. All right, a little quick overview. This is just a Kenmore sewing machine, your basic Kenmore. I am thinking about getting a new one. This one isn't that great for going through a ton of webbing, so I'm gonna get one that's a little bit more heavy duty for the webbing aspect. I've got a sharp needle. I think they're called, what are they called? AccuSharps, or so you don't want the needles that are round. They're basically rounded. The standard needle that you get with a sewing machines or doing like denim and cotton, they actually aren't sharp, and so they push fibers away. What you want for this type of fabric, the ripstop, the nylons, you want a sharp where it'll actually poke a hole. That's what you want. So I've got one of those needles in. This is the Mara 70 Gutermann thread. It's, of course, something that can be outside, has some UV protectant. Got my stitch length set to 8 stitches per inch. Got all my tensions all figured out. If you have any other questions, I've got a whole video on kind of how I do sewing and all that kind of stuff. Not a professionally trained or anything like that. Okay, so we were outside and we cut this beautiful cloth to the 85 inches. So Ethan wants a 7x7 foot tarp. So we've got it cut. 2 pieces are 7 feet long, but to make 7 feet wide, you have to put 2 of them together and then cut them again. So before I cut it again, I'm going to go ahead and do the ridgeline hem. And that's a flat felt, and I'll show you up close how I do that. So once we get that done, then we can go to the other 7 foot, because they don't make fabric that's 7 feet wide. They basically make it like 54 inches wide. We need 85, so that's why we're going to have to put 2 pieces together. So let me show you up close on this 1.1 ounce silk poly. Okay, so this 1.1 ounce silk poly has a dull side, and then it has that's the dull side, and this is the shiny side. So you just kind of decide on what you want on the outside. I don't think it makes a big difference. I have a feeling this has the silicone a little bit closer. I like having the dull side out so it's not shining. So what we need to do to begin this hem is put the 2 sides we want outside facing each other. Okay, so right here on my zipper foot, there's little lines. In this first pass I'm going to do, it's just a little less than 1/4 inch for this first pass, and this is down both the long sides, or the long side, because we're going to make one big long 7 foot tarp. Make sure I've got everything lined up. You've got a way to drop a needle. That really helps out, I find. And I don't really go for the pinning anything. This material is, you want as few holes as possible in your material. So if you pin it, you're just going to get that many more holes in it. I can just kind of shift this back and forth and keep it in line, and it seems to work out just fine. Lock stitch. Good. Okay, now I'm just gonna run it down. I check every once in a while. Just gonna check I'm right on target. So I mean, if you want to do clamps or pins, that's your deal. I don't do that. Okay, there's the first hem. Now we're going to basically turn it around on itself. That. So turn it around on itself, and then I'm going to sew the next spot over on my foot so it sews outside that inner hem just a little bit, and I'm going to do that all the way down. Okay, so now I'll just fold that over. Get it all nicely folded and lined up. I'm not a fast sewer, So I'll just get that all nicely lined up, and then I'll ride it right along this side of my zipper foot, or my sewing machine foot. Just line it up again. Make sure everything's all good. Away I go. Okay, so there's the second one. So now we butterfly it open and lay that down. Now I'm going to sew right along that edge, and some people call that a flat felled or French seam or a semi-flat felled or pseudo flat felled. I don't really care, but it makes a nice, pretty watertight hem. Wherever these little threads are going through, you gotta seal that up. But it's pretty strong, pretty nice. So now I'm just gonna sew right down that edge. So now I'm having to push half of the fabric through this slot here, and so you just I go a little bit slower, and then that way I can manage everything nicer. I'm not in any hurry. And I'll just kind of keep pushing this up, pushing that out, flattening it. Okay, so here is the end of the seam. So there's the first one we sewed, and then the second one's underneath here. Actually, the first one's underneath here, the second one's right there, and then the third one's the one you can see right there. And so it makes a real strong binding. So now I'm going to trim it down so it's 7 by 7. Now I'm going to make some reinforcements, and we need like 3 of these for this tarp. This is a minimalist tarp. So I'm going to make 3, cut out 3 of these, and one of these I'm going to cut in quarters, and that will be for the corner tie-outs, and then the other 2 I'll just cut in half, and that'll be for like the ridge line and for the midway tie-out points. Now I'm just going to put a little silicone. What is this? This is the seam grip with sill, and stick it right on that corner. Squish all the little bubbles out. And I'll go around and do that to all the spots where I'm putting reinforcements. And that'll be nice. So I'm also making sure that I'm putting, like this is the shiny side, I'm putting the shiny side to shiny side. So not that I really know that's going to make a big difference, but might as well. I'm going to be using these line locks. You'll see how those work later. But with these minimalist tents, you're going to be using your trekking poles most likely. So we want to have ample stuff to be able to sew in to tie onto the tie out, and then be able to put your trekking pole in. So I'm just going to come up with a kind of a nice set. That looks good. Maybe it's a little bit less. That looks good. So we want it loose enough so we'll be able to put the trekking pole through to set up, have the line lock, not so loose that it's all over the place. And yeah, I think that'll be good right there, and then enough to go on. Okay, now to do my tie outs, do a 5-inch grosgrain. Burn the edges. And using these little line locks, and I'll show you later on when I do a setup, but I found when I do these small tarps and when I'm out in the field, it's you need to be able to adjust things quickly to get it set up really nicely. And also, I do a spread like that. I'm a sailor. I have sailboats. I have sails. And I know a lot of people just go like that. It's probably okay. But like with my sails, the corner, the clew, is spread out and that makes sense to me just because that distributes the stress more radially. I'm also leaving a gap so you can put the trekking pole in there. That's the other thing about doing these small tarps is you've got to be able to put your trekking pole in there too. You'll see all that later. More. Just kind of work our way around. I'll go a little ways up. I'll go across. Then I'll go up. So hopefully I'm catching the reinforcement and the webbing or the grosgrain. I know sometimes on webbing you see a lot of zigzag, like really thick, but with this type of fabric, if you do that really thick, back and forth, 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 that'll just create a hole. So I don't do that. It's not necessary, I found, to just do your regular old stitches. I could go do little X's, things like that. I mean, that's definitely doable. I mean, I could do like that. Back up. And come back down. I think that just makes a lot more holes than what's necessary, but it can be done. So. Yeah, if you have your tensions all set right, and you know, that's just a strong. It's strong. I'd rather mend it or re-sew it than to punch a bunch of holes into this fabric.